The choice wasn't easy, but Bella made it. Before the immortal court, surrounded by shadows and red eyes, with Renesmee in her arms and the Cullens about to be executed for a crime they did not commit, Bella Swan raised her voice. "If you let them live, I'll go with you." The echo of those words sounded like thunder in the throne room. Aro remained silent for several seconds. Then his smile opened slowly and wide, like a poisonous flower. "Oh, my dear Bella, what a noble soul you have." Edward tried to stop her. "Bella, no," but she didn't look at him. She looked only at Aro. "You want my power, not my family. Let them go." Aro didn't blink. He didn't need to. "I accept." And so Bella Swan became property of the Volturi. Renesmee cried as she was pulled from her mother. Edward trembled with rage, unable to move. Alice gripped his arm tightly. "If you go after her now, you'll die. We'll all die." And Edward knew it was true. Bella had just saved them, but the price was herself. Volterra was a hell wrapped in white marble. Aro treated her like a guest of honor. He placed her in a spacious room, offered her custom-made dark clothing, presented her as the crown jewel of the Volturi. But Bella knew she was a prisoner. She was never alone. Renata escorted her at every step. Felix followed her like a shadow. Jane watched her with silent hatred. Alec tried to read her with his mist again and again. Nothing worked, because Bella was no longer the trembling human who had once entered this castle. Now she was a vampire. Now she had a gift, and now no one could touch her mind, not even Aro. At first, Bella resisted. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. She fed on animals in the forest under supervision, refusing to hunt humans. Aro let her be, for a while. "Your compassion is charming, Bella," he would say, "but your destiny is greater than that." "My destiny was to raise my daughter." Aro only smiled. "And aren't you securing her future with your sacrifice?" Bella said nothing. But inside, she was falling apart. Time in Volterra wasn't measured in days, but in silences, weeks without news from the outside, months without seeing a face that didn't glow with the cold gleam of death. And finally, years without hearing from Renesmee. Bella no longer knew if she was growing well, if she remembered her voice, if she asked about her, and that absence, more than blood, was what fed her rage. Over time, Bella stopped fighting, not because she gave up, but because she understood how Volterra worked. Obedience was valued, proximity to Aro gave you power, and power was freedom. So Bella learned. She learned to move through the halls like a respected shadow. She learned to wield her shield with surgical precision, covering others if needed. She learned to survive. And little by little, she became a legend within the walls of Volterra. The guard members began to fear her, not because she shouted, not because she attacked, but because she never spoke more than necessary, because no one could control her. And the worst part, because no one knew whose side she was truly on. Aro displayed her like a trophy, our beautiful Bella, so powerful, so loyal. But even he was cautious, because no matter how strong his influence, he could never read her. And that unsettled him. One night, in the catacombs of Volterra, Dimitri let his guard down. "Do you still think of them?" he asked softly. Bella looked at him without expression. "Who?" "The Cullens." Bella barely smiled. She didn't answer, but inside the answer was pure fire. Yes, she thought of Edward every night, of Renesmee, of the life that had been taken from her, and she thought of how much power she had accumulated since then, of how much she had learned about the Volturi, of where the weaknesses were, of who might be willing to listen if she ever decided to tear it all down from within. Because maybe, someday, the silent queen of Volterra might become their downfall. The day began like any other in the fortress. The shadows of the guard moved through the hallways with the precision of an old clock. Human victims were silently guided into marble rooms that never saw sunlight again. And at the center of it all, sitting on his throne, Aro smiled. As always, as if the world belonged to him, as if he were eternal. But he didn't know that day would be the last he ever did. Bella walked alone down the central corridor. She wore no cloak. She didn't need to hide. All of Volterra knew who she was, and no one dared to stand in her way. Demetrius stepped aside without looking at her. Felix watched her with a mix of respect and fear. Even Renata, who once protected Aro with an impenetrable shield, stepped aside when she saw her. Because without saying a word, everyone knew what she was going to do, and none of them wanted to stop her. Aro looked up when she entered. My dear Bella, what a surprise! No escort today? Bella stopped in front of him. Her eyes were like melted ice. I don't need one. Aro narrowed his eyes. And to what do we owe this unexpected visit? I came to give you something. Aro leaned forward with a smile. A gift? An ending. And in that moment, Bella expanded her shield. But this time, she didn't just cover her mind. She covered everyone's mind who didn't want to fight for Aro. Demetrius, Felix, even Jane. They all felt the absolute silence where Chelsea's influence used to be. Because Bella had spent months training with her, learning to disrupt her threads. And that night, Chelsea was gone. Bella had made sure of it. Aro slowly rose from his throne. What are you doing? Bella didn't respond. She didn't need to, because then the back door opened, and Edward entered. With Alice, with Esme, with Renesmee. She was no longer a child. She was a grown hybrid, powerful, with eyes full of a fire Aro had never anticipated. At her side, dozens of witnesses. Allies who had waited in silence for years, waiting for Bella to give the signal. And now, the moment had come. Aro tried to speak, but this time no one listened because the strength of the Cullens was not in their numbers, it was in their cause. And that night, Volterra turned to ashes. Bella didn't kill Aro with her own hands. She didn't need to. Edward did, not for revenge, but for justice. When Aro's body fell from the throne, silent and white like broken marble, Bella simply turned around. She looked at Renesmee, the daughter she hadn't touched in years, and finally, she embraced her. His reign had ended, and with it, the reign of the Volturi. She never sought revenge, only justice. And when she finally got it, she didn't keep the throne. She only asked to go home, with her family, with her daughter, with the man who had loved her enough to let her go, and who had waited long enough for her to return. She was no longer Bella Swan, not even Bella Cullen. She was something more, something stronger, wiser, more feared. And yet, when she looked at Edward, she was still herself. Only now, she was free.